Meet the Daedra Hunter, a dark elf who foresaw the Oblivion crisis, and now is obsessed with eliminating all the Daedra who would threaten Tamriel. This is another one of my challenge builds for Oblivion Remastered, meaning I'm working with some extra rules while making this character. For this build, I'm only allowed to level skills which the character starts out with during creation. Dark Elves have 7 skills increased by either 5 or 10 points right away, so those are the only skills that are allowed to be used while playing. For this series I am also allowing Athletics and Acrobatics to level up, but every other skill is only usable if it's something that race has tagged. For this build there's going to be no selling items as we can't raise Mercantile, no crafting potions as there's no alchemy, and no wearing heavy armour either. I'll get to covering what the 7 skills you can use are in a short while, but first let's cover the origin and Birthsign. This character is a Dark Elf from Vardenfell. Choosing this origin means you lose out on personality rather than endurance, which is a trade-off I'll take every time. Playing as a Dark Elf also means you have an innate resistance to fire, meaning you ignore 75% of all damage from flaming attacks, which will definitely come in handy with this build. For a Birthsign I chose the Atronach. This gives a huge 150 point boost to Magicka, but also stops Magicka from naturally regenerating. To get your Magicka back, you'll either need to drink some potions, or rely on the third effect of the Atronach sign, Spell Absorption. With this effect you have a chance to negate any spells that are cast on you, and instead regain Magicka equal to the spell's cost. With a 50% chance of this proccing with the Atronach sign, this means half the destruction spells that hit you will actually be helping you out. The main attributes for this build are Strength and Agility. Strength is a brilliant attribute. While the primary purpose of it with this build is to raise damage with half your weapons, it will also determine your carry weight and increase your overall hit points. Amazing attribute, well worth maxing out. Agility will also increase weapon damage, though only for bows, daggers and short swords. On top of this though, it is the defining attribute for fatigue, not only increasing how much of it you have, but also how quickly it comes back. The additional attributes I focused on with this build were speed and endurance. Speed already gets a plus 10 starting boost by virtue of playing as a Dark Elf, so why not lean further into that and invest even more into it. This build is heavily focused around Oblivion gates, and the faster you can get through them, the better. Endurance is the attribute which has the greatest impact on health. The more of this you have, the harder you are to kill, so it's an ideal stat for any combat heavy characters. The skills that Dark Elves have naturally raised, and we can therefore select and use, are Blade, Destruction, Athletics, Blunt, Mysticism, Light Armour, and Marksman. I'll start off by covering Athletics as this is a pretty simple one. It'll help you travel around faster and make sprinting consume less fatigue. Very good skill for any character who travels around a lot, and ties in nicely with the extra speed we have. Light Armour is up next, and this determines what we'll be wearing. Light armour typically won't provide a huge level of damage resistance, but it also won't slow you down noticeably, unlike heavy armour. Mysticism is our last non-damage focused skill, and this has a few different effects to it. With it we can gain handy effects like reflect damage and dispel, but these are spells you will cast on yourself, so be careful of the Atronach sign absorbing the effect. This school of magic also comes with the Soul Trap spell, which should make keeping our enchanted weapons charged up a tad bit easier and cheaper. Time for the offensive skills now, starting out with the other school of magic, Destruction. This is about as straightforward as magic schools get, providing you with a bunch of spells to deal damage to targets at any ranges. Choosing which element to use will provide you with some decisions to make, but otherwise, it's just a case of keep on blasting. Time to take a look at our physical weapon choices, starting with Blade. This will cover daggers and swords of all types, giving us some fast swinging melee weapons, perfect for getting in some quick damage. We also have Blunt, which covers the rest of their melee weapons in the game. These will typically be slower, but much harder hitting than any of the blades we have. We'll be getting onto the specific weapon choices I went with in a moment, but first we need to talk about the final skill, Marksman. Despite already having so many different ways to do damage, I couldn't pass up wielding a bow with this character, especially as there will only be a couple of challenge builds who get to do that. Raising this skill will make hitting your targets much easier, as well as increasing the base damage of your bow. Onto the equipment now, and as always I'll be starting with weapons. First on my list of weapons is Caliban's Grim Retort. This mace absorbs both strength and blunt, weakening your enemy while strengthening you. A perfect choice for tackling melee opponents, and the extra bit of frost damage will make you hit even harder. Chill Rend is another melee weapon with a frost damage enchantment, but it also has a weakness to frost effect too, making this a perfect weapon to open with if facing a particularly strong enemy, as you'll then be getting bonus damage with both weapons so far. The final melee weapon I went with was Rock Shatter. This dwarven mace also has a weakness enchantment, this time for shock damage. As this weapon also has a shock damage effect, this means every follow-up attack with the weapon deals an extra bit of damage. Last weapon of the build is the Frostworm Bow. This is another frost damage weapon, and a pretty solid bow overall. The base damage of the bow makes it the strongest of all the weapons I was wielding, while also being the lightest. Shame that we're not allowed to sneak at all with the challenge rules, or else this build could have been a real nasty stealth archer. Onto the apparel now, where I picked up the full set of Morag Tong armour. This is basically just a set of leather armour, but with some real strong enchantments on it. Sadly, not every one of these enchantments will actually help due to the challenge element, but the main piece comes with a resist normal weapons and resist magic effect, which makes up for the less than stellar base armour rating. Honestly, I struggled a bit to pick a good set of armour for this build, as nothing in the game really screams Demon Hunter, but let me know in the comments if there's a set you think would be better. Last bit to cover in the equipment section will be our necklace and rings. I had an Amulet of Absorption equipped, which stacks real nice with the Action Arc sign, meaning that most of the time I would absorb any spells which were cast at me. I think this effect might also cover the weird towers and traps in the Oblivion gates, as they also seem to not do damage to me most of the time. My first ring I had equipped was the Weatherward Circlet. This has a resist fire and resist frost effect. The resist fire will ensure we're capped out for fire damage, and a little bit of frost resist is nice to have too. My other ring was the Ring of the Viper Eye, which fortifies agility and resists magic. Occasionally a spell will get through, but when it does, this ring will lower the damage it deals. Plus it constantly raises one of our main attributes, so it's always being helpful. When it comes to factions for this build, you want to be solely focused on the main quest. Help the Blades find Martin Septim and close the gates to Oblivion forever. Everything else is of secondary concern to this character, so I didn't really want to focus much on the other factions you could potentially try and join. This character is built around a single purpose, closing every Oblivion gate in Cyrodiil. With so many different weapon types, we easily have every range covered, so you can fight at all distances. Open combat with a couple of shots from your bow, blast a destruction spell while closing the distance, and then finish off the enemy in melee, if they have any health left that is. Because the focus is on the Oblivion gates, there were two areas I wanted to lean into a little. The first is elemental damage. Shock-based attacks are extra effective at taking down all standard types of Daedra, so having a shock-based destruction spell and using Rock Shatter against these enemies will make things a fair sight easier. Frost attacks are more effective against Flame Action Arcs, which seem to be everywhere in Oblivion gates, but also gives extra damage against Spider Demons too, which will start showing up at higher levels. The other element which helps to deal with the gates is the high speed tied with wearing light armour. This should help you to get through the gates a fair sight faster, and does allow you to just sprint through to grab a Sigil Stone without too much fighting every time. The Daedra Hunter was once just a normal Dark Elf. He lived a very standard life within Dunmer society, and never really wanted anything other than this. It seemed the gods had something else in store for him though, as after many years of a mundane life, he started to have strange dreams. As he slept, he saw the Daedric realms of Oblivion. The endless lava and dark towers filled him with fear, and unintelligible whispers tried to warn him of what was to come. After weeks and weeks of these unending nightmares, he was able to make out a single word: Cyrodiil. As the nightmares continued, he began to understand what he must do. He left his old mundane life behind, and headed to the capital of the Empire, knowing that he must warn the people there of what is to come if they do not act. On his journey, he tended to shy away from most other travellers, as they saw something strange in his eyes and always treated him with a level of fear. But there was one group who seemed to accept his presence at their camp. The group was diverse, with a member of every one of the races of Tamriel, and despite their differences, they were all allowed a place around the fire. While the Dunmer was glad to be accepted once more, the fire couldn't help but remind him of what was to come. After another night of restless sleep, he walked the final leg of his journey, reaching the Imperial City and seemingly with time to spare. No gates were open, and the land seemed to be at peace. And so, he tried to warn the people. He told anyone who would listen about the dangers that were to come, but his words fell on deaf ears. The lack of action by those he spoke to frustrated him to no end. He had come all this way to try and avert disaster, but nobody was taking him seriously. In a fit of desperation, he began to run through the streets, screaming at those around him, desperate for them to finally listen and avoid catastrophe before it was too late. But rather than heed his warning, they just threw him in jail for disturbing the peace. As he slowly wastes away in the Imperial prisons, he begins to understand. Nobody else will do anything to fix the world until the danger is right on their doorstep. The only way to do what needs to be done is to do it himself. I hope you all enjoyed another one of my Oblivion challenge builds. Feel free to check out the previous couple I've uploaded and subscribe if you want to see more. Make sure to leave a like on the video, because why wouldn't you? And as always, thanks for watching. Sarge out.